Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be filming a Valentine's Day book tag. I just thought, because this video is going up on Valentine's Day, why not do something Valentine's Day related? And so I had a look around YouTube to try and find a fun book tag, and I found this one, and I just think the questions seem really fun, and so I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't actually know who the original creator of this video is. None of the videos that I saw actually had the original creator's video linked in the description. And so if you do, by any chance, know who created this tag, then please let me know and I'll be sure to link them down below. Thinking up the answers to these questions was quite fun for me because I don't really tend to read much romance, and the romantic relationships that are in the books that I do like to read aren't usually what I focus on primarily in the books. So kind of thinking about all the books I have read, but from this kind of romantic angle, was pretty fun. I do just quickly want to add, before we get into the questions, that there will be some spoilers in this video because I will be talking about which characters have romantic relationships with other characters. But I won't dwell on this too much, and I won't talk about who ultimately ends up with who or what ends up happening with the characters in the end, and so hopefully it shouldn't be too spoilery. So without further ado, let's just get into the romantic questions. So the first question is, what is your favourite basic romance plot? So I don't really know if this is a specific kind of romance plot, but I would say that my favourite kind of romances in books are realistic, slow building, believably complex, and basically just non-insta love romances. So as you all probably know by now, I love reading literary fiction novels, and my favourite kind of novels focus on believable characters and well-rounded characters. And I think that more than anything, I just love witnessing these characters interact with one another and seeing how complex human relationships can be and all of the different forms that they can come in. So because of this, I think that when there is a romantic relationship in a book, I like them to be romantic relationships that could just happen to somebody in real life. So whether this is a character coming to terms with themselves as an individual and maybe figuring out what their sexuality is or what matters to them as an individual and what matters to them in a potential partner and kind of a relationship developing from there, or whether it's about two characters who have been friends for a very long time and then they realise that their relationship has developed into something more than a platonic friendship, or whether it's just about a normal kind of relationship that develops and it makes that person better as an individual, but they don't rely on the other person to kind of be the person they want to be. Basically, I just enjoy reading about all kinds of complex and believable romances, believable being key. Question 2 is, what is your favourite classic romance? I think my answer to this question comes from A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. This is a classic novel set in Edwardian England, and our protagonist is Lucy Honeychurch, who is a young girl who's just trying to figure out who she is, and at the beginning of the novel she travels to Italy with her cousin Charlotte. And while they're in Italy, Lucy meets George Emerson, who is a lower class man and is extremely blunt, and his rejection of social rules just really intrigues Lucy. But then when she goes home, she's actually engaged to marry a Cecil Vyse, who is an extremely arrogant and pompous man. So E.M. Forster is brilliant at drawing really interesting characters who are not only great in their own right, but also represent the social class they are from and other ideologies and notions as well. So in this book, Cecil obviously stands for the rigid and overbearing Edwardian society that Lucy comes from, and George represents passion and more radical thinking. So Lucy is just a brilliant character in this book anyway. She is young and optimistic and seeking adventure, and she struggles throughout the book with feeling restricted by her family and societal expectations and wanting to please all these people that she loves, but also wanting to transgress these boundaries. And George obviously represents all this for her, and I just loved seeing their relationship blossom. It was so exciting and lovely, and it's just a wonderful book, and I would highly, highly recommend it, especially for the romance. Question 3 is, what is your favourite feel-good romance? So I am sorry to talk about this book again, but I suppose it won't really come as a surprise that I'll be talking about a couple of my favourite books in this video, because a lot of the questions are asking me about my favourite relationships in books that I've read. And so for this question, my answer comes from Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. As you all probably know, this is a children's classic that follows the 4 March sisters, Beth, Jo, Meg and Amy, kind of just as they grow up into their 20s in a kind of coming of age story. So Jo March is my favourite character in this book. She is boyish and creative and headstrong, and when she goes away to become a nanny to some family friends' children, she meets a Mr. Bear, who is a German tutor for the children that she's looking after. And I just love the relationship that Jo and Mr. Bear form. He is also quite headstrong and strongly principled and very intelligent, which is something that Jo definitely needs in a romantic partner. And I just think they suit each other really well. I think he really complements her personality and brings out a lot of the good sides of her and also kind of balances out the worst sides. I just love these two together. I think they make such a great couple. A much better couple, actually, than what Jo would have made with a certain other character in the book. A character who is much better suited just as her best friend. Question 4 is, what is your favourite sad romance? For this question, I had to answer with Jude and Willem's relationship from A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a literary fiction novel that follows 4 men who move to New York and embark on their lives, and we get to witness their lives over many decades. And in this book, Jude and Willem end up forming a relationship when they realise that they care about each other much more than in a platonically friendship way. I love the romance in this novel precisely because of the really long history and deep care that these two characters have for each other. They've just known each other for so long and they really know and trust each other such an extraordinary amount. The novel also really perceptively looks at how relationships and feelings can be really complex and also how two people can just be so intimately close. I found this relationship to be deeply emotionally affecting while I was reading the book, and as you will know if you have read this novel, it is certainly very sad. Question 5 is, what is your favourite genre to add romance to? So as I've already said, I primarily like to read literary fiction, and I think I like to read romances in literary fiction the most because I think they offer the most complex and believable and insightful relationships. But if I was to add a specific genre to this, I think I would probably say historical fiction. I feel like I've read quite a lot of great historical fiction that has brilliant romances in it, and I just think it's so interesting to see the way that romantic relationships can be so timelessly the same across so many different time periods, but also how they can differ across these time periods as well. So I think historical fiction would probably be my answer. Question 6 is, what is your least favourite romance of all time? So my answer for this question, without a doubt, is Bella and Edward's relationship from the Twilight series by Stephanie Meyer. I'm sure you all know what Twilight is about, and I'm sure you all probably know why I'm saying this is my least favourite romance of all time. But just to name a few reasons why, Edward is extremely possessive over Bella and extremely jealous of her relationship with her male best friend Jacob and often forbids her from seeing him. He also verbally abuses Bella and mocks her for being clumsy and exceptionally unobservant, I think the phrase is. He always acts as if he knows what is best for Bella and makes decisions on her behalf even when she disagrees with that kind of course of action. He follows her around. He breaks into her bedroom without her permission and watches her sleep. Enough. What is potentially the most damaging about this relationship, of course, is the way that it is presented as caring and romantic, and the fact that its target audience is a young group of influential teenagers, usually female teenagers. Of course, there are other books that have really problematic and abusive relationships in them that I have read, and often have abuse in them that are even more obviously abusive than in this book, but I did want to mention this one because of the target audience that it has and the massive amount of influence it has. I just think it is so horrendous and extremely damaging. So, on a lighter note, question 7 is, who is your favourite literary couple in general? I think my answer to this question is Mr. and Mrs. Weasley from the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. I just feel like Mr. and Mrs. Weasley are such a unit. They've just been together for so long and have built a family together, and they just continue to love each other and support each other through everything, and I just think that is so great and so admirable. And they also just clearly know each other so well and accept each other for who they are, even on the things which they disagree about. I just think their relationship, while it might not be the most talked about or the most showy, is just so strong and admirable, and I just think they're lovely. And finally, question 8 is, if you could have one literary significant other, who would they be? Honestly, I found this question quite difficult to answer because it isn't really often that I fall in love with characters in this sense. Like, I don't often really feel like, oh, that character would be wonderful to be in a relationship with. But one of the characters that came to my mind that has quite a lot of the characteristics that I find admirable in a partner is Kvothe from The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and this is an epic fantasy novel. Kvothe is extremely intelligent and eager to learn and interesting, which are all things that attract me towards a potential partner, but he's also just so loyal and loving towards his family and friends, which of course is very important. And he's just a really strong character, basically. He has a really strong will and a really strong sense of what he thinks is right and wrong, which I do think is very important. He is also a magician, which would obviously just be really cool, and he's an extremely talented musician, which would just be lovely. So that was all for the questions in this tag. This was certainly a lot of fun for me to film, and I hope you enjoyed hearing my answers as well. I'd be really interested to know who your favourite literary couple of all time is, so please be sure to let me know down below. I think that would be really interesting. And I hope you've all had a really nice Valentine's Day if you celebrate Valentine's Day, or just a really nice day if you don't. And I will see you all next week with my next video. Bye!